It's on now. So good morning. Let me do this again. How are you? There's no place I'd rather be. I'm just gonna tell you right away from the start. You might be wondering how I'm doing. So I'm doing much better. Thursday I turned a corner and I haven't had a relapse. So I'm grateful for that. I don't know that I won't have one, but I haven't had one, and we'll go with that. And I'm feeling better. Even my thinking is clearing up a little bit. So who knows? One of these days I may be a sharp thinker again. You'll never know. I don't know. But if it's true, I'll look forward to it. I'm thinking today, and as I was driving here today, I was thinking that there's no place I'd rather be. There's no place I'd rather drive to. And then yesterday I had a similar day. I was in this crowd on Westnedge, and I wasn't sure if I should go because, I'm still weak as a kitten and not really myself. I've turned a corner for the good, but I'm far from well. And I didn't know if I should go, but I decided, you know what, I'm going. And as I was walking among the people, I thought, there's no place I'd rather be. And I am so glad I came here because I have been cooped up in my house for 3 weeks now. Just since California, 3 weeks. And just bombarded with this deluge of from bad to worse news constantly, and not just one a day, but many of them a day. And it got me down. And I was the last one to know that I needed that yesterday to pick me up, to give me a little more energy and to put spring in my steps again and hope in my heart, and that there may be light in the future. Today I want to talk to you about a story. It's not a story. It's our history. There were 3 men. They walked out of a restaurant, and they had a decision to make. Should we turn left, or should we turn right? And they did not know that decision would change dramatically the course of their lives. And they did not know that it would reverberate through the world, and that even the President of the United States would respond to their decision. Should we turn left, or should we turn right? And on that fateful evening, they turned right. But let me take you back just a couple of days before this day. It is March 7, 1965. And it is Selma, Alabama. And the African Americans, I'm taking a drug that's causing this cough that I can't control, so I apologize for that. It's a side effect. And the African Americans decided on this day to march to Montgomery and demand voting rights for African Americans. And so there was a large crowd, and they were carrying suitcases and bags, and they were walking together. And they reached this bridge, this now famous, infamous bridge. And they started walking on it. And then at one point, when they looked down at the other end, they saw these police men in fighting gear with their helmets, their batons, many on horseback, ready for a fight. And so the chief on loudspeaker told them, "You need to turn back, go home, or go to your churches. There's nothing else I need to say to you. But you proceed at your own peril. Turn around, go home." And there are iconic pictures of that day, and the leaders in their little trench coats have their hands in their pockets, determination on their face, and they don't say a word and stand their ground. And then it just all happened so fast. The police attacked these unarmed people, beating them with batons. And if they could outrun the police, they surely couldn't outrun the horses. And this has come to be known as Bloody Sunday. And the police kept the photographers back, but they were still taking pictures, and they're pixelated. But they traveled the world before these demonstrators were able to return to their homes. And President Lyndon Johnson saw it, and so did Reverend James Reeb, whom everybody called Jim, and his wife Marie in Boston. They watched it in horror and distress, and they talked about it, and Jim said, "I just gotta do something. I gotta do something." So the next day, Monday, when Martin Luther King Jr. put out a call to the ministers of this country to come and descend upon Selma, Jim didn't need to be prodded. He sat down with his wife. They talked about it. Marie said, "I'd rather you didn't go. We have 4 little girls. I'm concerned." But she knew the men she married. So she also told him, "But I know who you are. And if your heart is there to go, I support it." So that night, Monday night, Jim read a story to his 4 little girls and packed his bags and left. Tuesday, in Selma, he spent the day in meetings. And of all the ministers who showed up there, 3 were Unitarians. Olafson and Miller and Jim Reed. And in the evening, it was time to go for supper. And because they were civil rights activists, they were not welcomed in this very segregated Selma in the white restaurants. So they went to one of the 2 integrated restaurants of the town. They had a lovely dinner, some good conversation, the 3 of them. There was a phone booth in that restaurant. They all called their wives. Olafson stepped outside, smoked a cigar. And he was thinking as he was standing out there, it was about 7 p.m., that it is so peaceful. It is just so lovely. This could be like any Midwestern town in Ohio where he grew up. Then the other 2 joined him, and they had this terrible decision to make. Should we turn left, or should we turn right? On the way there, they took a route, kind of roundabout by the river, that they were pointed to. But remember, they don't know Selma. They're brand new here. This is their first day in Selma. And they didn't know that by taking their route, they avoided the seedy side of town. But now, outside this hotel, making this decision, they chose the route they thought was shorter. And that took them through the seedy side of town by this cafe that was well known for its, well, seedy patrons. And as they are walking, they became aware that about 4 or 5 men were following them. And they were yelling the N-word at them. And they were very menacing. So they quickened their steps and decided not to engage the men. Jim was walking on the sidewalk a little bit behind the other two. And Olafsson looked back and he realized that the men had caught up to them. And just then he saw as one who had either a bat or a pipe in his hand took a terribly hard swing at Jim's head. And he said that he could never forget the sound, the impact what his skull made. Jim immediately fell to the ground on his back. Then they jumped the other 2 ministers. They kept kicking and beating Jim. The other 2 balled up in defense on the ground. And then all of a sudden, they were just gone. It was over. And so Olafsson and Miller got up. Jim couldn't. They helped him up. He was alive. Didn't make any sense. He wasn't coherent. And they decided to walk to this insurance agency, which was headquarters to the organizers, civil rights organizers. And they were told that if anything should happen, that's where they need to go. And so they're helping Jim, and as they walk along, Jim starts to make a little bit more sense, and all he can do is complain about this terrible, terrible headache. They reach the office, and there is a receptionist there. They ask her to put in a call to 911. Jim says he'll be fine, it's just this headache, it has to go away, he'll be fine. The others insist, no, you have to go, you need to be seen. And they take him to this place, which is not really a hospital, but that's all the blacks have available to them in Selma. It's this not well equipped little place where they can, patch up a little something. But no real medical help can be given to anybody. But blacks had nothing better available to them in Selma. So the doctor there immediately realizes that there is something wrong here and tells him Jim needs to be seen by the neurosurgeon. They call an ambulance. They load Jim in the ambulance. The other 2 are riding in the front. And about 2 miles out of town, they get a flat tire. They're trying to radio in for help, but it's not working. It's not getting through. And now a car just arrived. And then another car arrives, and they're surrounded by these white men who are menacing. And they're asking, hey, what's going on here? In a mean way, in a very frightening way. And the 2 ministers were thinking, what if this is a setup? What if we are going to end up like those 3 in Mississippi who were killed? What if we will be found somewhere in a ditch or at the bottom of a dirt mound or not found at all? And this is the end. And their instinct is to run, but there's Jim in the ambulance, by now unconscious. The doctor and the driver decide to ride back to town on the rim of the ambulance. And they go to a nearby radio station where they can call for help. Another ambulance arrives. A little over an hour has passed now. Martin Luther King Jr. is already on the waves, giving account to the nation about what just happened. He informs the nation before Jim Reeb gets to arrive to Birmingham for help. So another ambulance comes. The drive is about 2 hours long. They make it in an hour and 20 minutes. They were flying. By the time they arrive, there's reporters everywhere, cameras everywhere. They can barely push themselves through the reporters and the crowd that's gathered. Big sensation. And they operate on Jim. And Marie gets a call from her minister in Boston, who is trying to be vague about the accident that had happened, the incident that had happened, but tells Marie that she should make arrangements to fly to Birmingham, Alabama, to be with Jim. She does that. President Lyndon Johnson and Lady Bird send a bouquet of yellow roses to the Reebs. Marie really doesn't want to give an interview, but the media pushes, so eventually she agrees. The entire time she clutches her hands and just looks at them while she gives the interview. The questions they asked. One of them was, do you think it was worth it? And she said, I don't feel I have the right to answer that for myself. But knowing who Jim is, yes, anything would have been worth it. Jim dies 2 days later. On the 15th of March, Lyndon Johnson gives the first talk to the nation in which, for the first time, he speaks of the Voting Rights Act, and he invokes the Reebs, Jim Reeb in particular. And then 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act is passed. You never know what it takes. It's a tragedy that it happened this way, that all the skulls that were crushed on Bloody Sunday may have not mattered as much as this one on Tuesday. But the Voting Rights Act was passed. This is our DNA. This is who we are. This is who we have been. When the call comes we go. We don't go. Jim didn't go because it was easy. He went because the shoulders that he stood upon and the values and the principles that he held dear in his heart couldn't have him do otherwise. So he answered the call. That's who UUs are. UUs have done it throughout history. Some more visibly, some less. There is the sharp Unitarian minister couple who go to Nazi Germany in 1939 and they rescue thousands of intellectuals and children from Nazi Germany. They leave their 3 children at home. What a decision to make. They leave them at home in care of other family members, and they go over there in harm's way, not because it was easy, but because the shoulders they were standing on and the values and the principles that they lived by would not have them do otherwise. And they go to Nazi Germany and they risk their lives and their well-being to rescue people, Jews and children and intellectuals from concentration camps and certain death. This is our DNA. This is who we are. And when the call comes, we answer. I was very encouraged yesterday that there was a crowd, and I felt uplifted by the energy. That these are people also. I'm not alone. We UUs are not alone either. There's so many out there who, when the call comes, we answer. We answer because there is this decency at the core of us that wants to see decency in the world and can't stand it when sees the exact opposite. Can't stand it, the cruelty, that when the government admits that they mistakenly sent a father to El Salvador, to the concentration camp, they admit it. It was a mistake, and they refuse to do anything about it. What sort of government is that, and what sort of right do they still have to govern? So when people see this, because of their sense of decency and their values and their principles, they answer the call and there they go, outside. Now, I have predicted much of this. Not because I'm so smart, not because I can tell the future, but because I've not forgotten the past. I've lived through this. And the next thing that is coming is this. We will be called to choose between comfort and conscience. We will be called to choose between comfort and conscience. Now, sitting here today, not one of us has the slightest clue how we will respond when that happens. But it's coming. I promise you it's coming. And today, you can't know how you will respond when that call comes. There's one thing you can do, though. Sit with it. Visualize it. Prepare for it. Because if you don't, it's anybody's guess. If you do, there's a better chance that we might choose conscience over comfort. We are in this together. And it is not just us. But you see, I see us sandwiched between the past and the future. In the past, the Sharps and Susan B. Anthony, and look, how many I'm leaving out. Jim Reeb, they answered the call. And they stood for the values and principles that their faith espouses, that we Unitarian Universalists espouse. That's the past, and here we are now, at crossroads as well. These are consequential times, you know it. And the decisions we make today, there will be a future generation that will look back on us, and somebody from there will give a talk about us. And what will they say? Will they say they chose comfort over conscience, or the opposite? Will they say they restored decency, they defended democracy, they returned kindness and fairness into their world? Or will they say they remained silent and went with the flow? We are sandwiched between the past and the future, and it matters what we do today and how we do it. So when I say that we are in this together, I don't see it just as us, but I also see the great people whose shoulders we stand on, whose courage we draw inspiration from, whose convictions strengthen ours, so we may be able to give something to them, those who are to come, that is beautiful, that is right, that they can be proud of, that makes their life easier, kinder, more compassionate, decent, and possible in a democracy. So, we are in this together, and that's the good news. And together, we can do what we cannot do alone. And so it is.